It's Monday, June 20th, and this is now on HNN.
Important for me and other folks to connect with folks in the community and understand that we're here.
Juneteenth marks the emancipation of enslaved African Americans in the United States. I'm Astrid Martinez with how people across the country are celebrating the holiday.
We are not staffed appropriately.
Happening now, flight cancellations and delays snarl traffic during the busy holiday weekend.
Whether or not this is a, quote, mob hit or not.
As western lakes evaporate and glaciers melt, old mysteries are being revealed. I'm Danya Backus with how climate change is uncovering secrets from beneath.
These stories, plus Iron Chef finally returns with a new Netflix series. We've got a preview coming up on...
We begin with this breaking news. Hawaii County's police chief is planning to retire later this year. Police Chief Paul Ferreira confirmed that he is retiring in the fall. He was named chief in 2016. During his tenure, he led the police department through significant events, including the 2018 eruption and the 30-meter telescope protest to the coronavirus pandemic. We'll have much more on his retirement on later editions of Hawaii News Now and on your HNN digital platforms.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for watching This Is Now. We want to get started with a live look at Honolulu's airport. We're tracking more travel trouble today at noon. Millions of Americans are flying home after the holiday weekend, but some never even made it to their destinations in the first place. That's because thousands of flights were canceled or delayed. Bree Jackson reports from Washington, D.C.
Another long weekend of long lines amid a turbulent start to the summer travel season.
Look at the line. I mean, welcome to 2022, I guess.
And more travel troubles.
On my way to the airport, I see my flight's canceled. So I'm like, oh, well, this is unfortunate.
In all, around 3,000 flights were canceled between Friday and Sunday alone, with thousands more delayed. The chaos continued Monday as airlines struggle with a mix of staffing shortages and increased demand. After similar disruptions Memorial Day weekend, the Biden administration grilled industry leaders, pushing to get ahead of problems before an even bigger travel holiday, July 4th weekend.
At the end of the day, they've got to deliver. Passengers buy that ticket, expect to get to where they need to go.
The president is also upping the pressure on oil companies, telling them to do more to bring down fuel costs, which have driven ticket prices up.
There's a logical transition to be made here, and I want an explanation from them as to why they aren't refining more oil.
President Biden says he's also considering a federal gas tax holiday to provide drivers some relief.
We have a certain amount of money for gas that we spend every single week, and that's all we spend. And honestly, if we run out and we don't have any more gas money, we don't go places.
With more people expected to hit the roads and airports as vacation season heats up, there's hope that travel goes more smoothly. President Biden says he could make a decision on pausing the federal gas tax by the end of this week. The effort to announce new measures comes ahead of a meeting between the Biden administration and oil executives scheduled for this Thursday. In Washington, I'm Bree Jackson for NBC News.
The State Department of Health is preparing to vaccinate children under 5 as soon as this week. This comes after the CDC gave final clearance over the weekend. With more on this, here's DOH spokesperson Brooks Bear.
We'll be receiving both Pfizer and Moderna vaccines for these young keiki. As soon as they begin to arrive, the healthcare providers around the state can begin to administer those vaccines. And it's great to know that these vaccines are going to be available on all islands in all counties, so everyone should be able to find a vaccine for their youngster. So the Department of Health is getting a supply of 27,500 doses that will go to hospitals, to clinics, to pediatricians' offices, and then the pharmacies and the community health centers are ordering their own supply directly from the manufacturers. So parents will have a choice of where they want to get their kids vaccinated.
So there's about 80,000 children in Hawaii between the ages of 6 months and 4 years old. State officials are also updating the website hawaiicovid19.com, that's hawaiicovid19.com, to include information on pediatric vaccinations.
In North Korea, state media is reporting that medical crews and epidemiological investigators have been dispatched to a province battling an outbreak of an intestinal disease. At least 800 families suffering from what North Korea has only called an acute enteric epidemic have received aid so far in South Hwanghae province, about 75 miles south of the capital, Pyongyang. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and his wife were pictured preparing to send medicines to the region. Enteric refers to the gastrointestinal tract, and South Korean officials say it may be cholera or typhoid. The new outbreak, first reported on Thursday, puts further strain on the isolated country as it battles chronic food shortages and a wave of COVID-19 infections. Meanwhile, in Japan, the debate over the gay marriage ban continues. The ban was ruled constitutional on Monday after 3 same-sex couples sued the Japanese government, saying the ban breaches a section of the Constitution that requires equal laws for everyone. But Japanese public broadcaster NHK reported the court ruled against them and dismissed the lawsuit. Another case decided last spring ruled the ban unconstitutional. It was the first time a court in Japan ruled on the matter. Japan is the only G7 country that hasn't recognized either same-sex civil unions or same-sex marriage at a national level, though some parts of the country issue partnership certificates. Millions of Americans are off today in observance of Juneteenth, the nation's newest federal holiday. It marks the date back in 1865 when Union troops marched to Galveston, Texas to announce that all enslaved people were free. Astrid Martinez has more.
Vice President Kamala Harris visited with children at the National Museum of African American History and Culture to talk about the importance of the new Juneteenth holiday.
And let this be a day that is a day to celebrate the principle of freedom, but to speak about it honestly and accurately.
Juneteenth celebrations began over the weekend. At Emancipation Park in Houston, there was music, history, and food.
We get together, we eat, we laugh, we listen to music, we dance, we praise God, we do it all.
In Fort Worth, Texas, 95-year-old Opal Lee, known as the grandmother of Juneteenth, led her annual 2.5-mile walk for freedom, symbolizing the 2.5 years it took for the enslaved black people in Texas to be freed after the Emancipation Proclamation.
And when they learned they were free, they started celebrating, and we've been celebrating ever since.
Here in New York City, the mayor for the first time declared Juneteenth a paid holiday for city workers. But across the nation, observances are different. Fewer than half the states recognize the holiday for their government workers. Lawmakers in Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, and other states failed to pass the needed legislation to give their public employees a paid day off. Supporters of Juneteenth worked more than 25 years to persuade the government to make it a federal holiday. Astrid Martinez, CBS News, New York.
More international news to get to in this new video. Sarah Duterte Carpio, the daughter of controversial outgoing President Rodrigo Duterte, was officially sworn in as the new vice president of the Philippines. The former mayor will be the 15th person to take this role. She's set to begin her term at the end of this month. You'll recall the incoming president is Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos, who won in a landslide in last month's election. A $325 million super yacht tied to a Russian billionaire has left Honolulu. The Amedeo was spotted leaving Honolulu Harbor around 7 last night. It was expected to leave for California on Friday, so it's unclear what led to that delay. The U.S. government seized the ship as part of a wider effort to punish those with links to Vladimir Putin. Now we want to turn things over to Natalie Brand, who is at Capitol Hill. She has the very latest on the January 6th hearings.
Monday, former Vice President Mike Pence appeared publicly just days after the bombshell House January 6th committee hearing, highlighting the danger he faced last year for refusing to block the certification of the 2020 election.
You know, we've all been through a lot over the last several years. A global pandemic, social unrest, a divisive election, a tragic day in our nation's capital.
Former President Donald Trump attacked his former vice president in rallies over the weekend, and he continued to spread the false election claims at the center of this month's congressional hearings.
We had a rigged and stolen election.
The former president is continuing on his campaign to undercut confidence in the election system.
Committee members have warned of a continued risk of political violence. Congressman Adam Kinzinger, one of two Republicans on the panel, tweeted a picture of a letter sent to his wife containing a threat to execute him and his family.
There is violence in the future, I'm going to tell you. And until we get a grip on telling people the truth, we can't expect any differently.
The Select Committee has scheduled more hearings this week. Tuesdays will focus on the former president's campaign to pressure state election officials. A star witness set to testify, Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, who received this now infamous phone call from Mr. Trump days before January 6th.
I just want to find 11,780 votes, which is one more than we have.
Arizona's Speaker of the State House is expected to testify about efforts to get the Arizona state legislature to override President Biden's win in his state. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Former Honolulu prosecutor Keith Kaneshiro remains free today ahead of his bribery trial scheduled for mid-August. FBI agents arrested the 72-year-old on Friday as part of the long-running public corruption probe tied to the Kilauea scandal. In this case, Kaneshiro is one of 5 people accused of being involved in what authorities describe as a quid pro quo bribery scheme. Authorities claim employees of the engineering firm Mitsunaga and Associates bribed Kaneshiro with campaign donations totaling $45,000 from 2012 to 2016. In exchange, Kaneshiro allegedly used his powers to wrongfully prosecute a fired Mitsunaga and Associates employee. Authorities say the company's CEO, Dennis Mitsunaga, wanted that employee prosecuted after she filed a federal discrimination lawsuit against the company. On Friday, Kaneshiro and the 4 others pleaded not guilty and were released on $50,000 bonds. Kaneshiro did not say anything to reporters as he left the courthouse. It's been 5 years since the Justice Department began investigating Kaneshiro, and Arlene Kawano has been documenting the probe since the very beginning. She shows us how the case has evolved.
Citizens should be able to look at the prosecutor and say that that person represents the highest ideals of justice and fairness.
Keith Kaneshiro was seen as a young, hard-charging prosecutor when he was first elected. He ran on campaigns that emphasized anti-corruption.
If you find it, attack it, and eradicate it. That's why we should re-elect Keith Kaneshiro.
And voters did, giving him his first term in 1989, a second in 1993.
What people think of in their mind as a tough prosecutor. I think he absolutely was. I mean, he had the track record to back that up.
He left office for the private sector, after that returning in 2010 to win a special election when Peter Carlisle left the office to become mayor. Kaneshiro was re-elected again in 2013. It was during that term that a special prosecutor was appointed to investigate public corruption tied to leaders in Honolulu law enforcement. One of Kaneshiro's top deputies, Catherine Kealoha, was the first target of that federal case.
Only on Hawaii News Now, they're 2 of the top law enforcers in Hawaii.
In May 2016, Kaneshiro avoided media by being escorted into the federal courthouse for grand jury proceedings. That escort launched an investigation by the Office of the Inspector General. 2 weeks later, Kaneshiro was back, but this time he walked in the front door, stopping to tell me he couldn't tell me why he was there.
It has to be secret. Whatever I'm here for, it has to be secret.
2 weeks after that, he returned again, this time to block federal subpoenas for Catherine Kilauea's personnel records. A judge ordered him to turn them over.
For a city prosecutor to attack a federal attorney, a federal prosecutor like that, much less a special prosecutor appointed by the Attorney General, in my lifetime is unheard of.
Months later,
For the city and county of Honolulu.
Congratulations, boss.
Kaneshiro was re-elected for a 5th term as Honolulu prosecuting attorney, despite the controversy surrounding his office. Just days after his swearing in, he was summoned again by the special prosecutor. Less than a month later, the City Corporation Council joined him at the federal courthouse, an appearance that followed an FBI raid of his office, seizing laptops and other devices.
You do not raid a prosecutor's office for evidence. You go to them and you ask them for the evidence. You don't get a subpoena and raid it. And the only reason you raid it is because you think evidence is going to be destroyed.
November of 2017 was the last time we saw Kaneshiro at the grand jury room. It's likely this is when the attention of the feds shifted, when they believed he too may have committed crimes. A year later, he was given a target letter from the Department of Justice.
The Kilauea scandal just became this black hole that ended up sucking everybody in. And in some cases, like so often happens, the cover-up is worse than the crime itself.
And Special Prosecutor Michael Wheat doesn't appear to be done just yet. I overheard him telling the grand jury foreperson that he has more work to do. I'm Lynn Kawano, Hawaii News Now.
And Lynn and our digital team has a really big write-up on this story that's still very much developing. Just head to your H&N digital platforms for that. All right, want to switch gears now, get you a check of the weather. Billy V's in for Guy Hockey.
First of all, North Shore out 2 to 4, that's on the way down. 4 to 6, that's south swells there, and with the surf meet on the south-facing shore, that's going to be good news. These numbers will get bigger tomorrow. West side wraparound, east side is kind of a sloppy 2 to 4. Let's take a look at your 7-day forecast. We'll start with today. East-northeasterly winds 15 to 20 miles per hour, and those winds stay breezy with us all the way through till Friday, which is really good news. It's going to be nice, really sunny today. Daytime high near 87 degrees. Yesterday, we hit a record over on the island of Maui, 92. So in some places, it's definitely going to feel warmer. So this great weather is going to be with us all the way through the week. Summertime is here. Get the latest at hawaiinewsnow.com.
Well, drought conditions in the Southwest have places like Lake Mead drying up, and that's revealing some really grim and rather shocking discoveries. Danya Bacchus has those details.
The mega drought in the West is revealing a dark side of climate change. In May, the plunging water levels at Nevada's Lake Mead uncovered 2 bodies. One in a barrel, Las Vegas police identified as a homicide victim, a man who had been shot probably between the mid-1970s and early 1980s. The second found in a newly surfaced sandbar. No foul play is suspected. As authorities work to identify the bodies, theories and folklore around the who, why, and how are circulating.
We were born from the mob, basically, unlike any other city that you could think of.
Oscar Goodman is a former Las Vegas mayor and an attorney who once represented members of the mob.
If they're able to identify the caliber of bullet, that would tell them an awful lot as to whether or not this is a, quote, mob hit or not.
While there are still questions around the Lake Mead grim discoveries, there seems to be one certain. More unidentified bodies could be located.
The biggest thing for us is that we need to start preparing for these to be more frequent events.
Jennifer Burns is a forensic anthropologist and professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
So we're going to start getting more cold cases from areas that we would not have expected to get them from.
She says climate change is affecting her profession, with water levels receding, wildfires increasing, and the frequency of storms like hurricanes. She believes Lake Mead is only the beginning.
Glaciers are melting, and so those are revealing bodies. So there's a lot of different examples of how climate change is impacting forensic science and human identification.
And it's anyone's bet what will be discovered next. Danya Backus, CBS News.
I've seen a lot of stories posted about that online. Certainly a buzz topic there. All right, want to see what else the internet is talking about? And grab your roller skates because the roller disco is back in New York City. Yes, Disco Oasis features evening skating under a disco ball at Central Park's Woolman Rink. Along with live DJs, theatrical performances, and special guests, the attraction rolls out through October 1st, and you can get more info at discoasis.com. Just Google Disco Oasis as well. It looks so much fun. I've seen a lot of people posting about this in New York City.
That looks like your jam, Jonathan.
It's beyond my jam,
I know.
and I would wear a helmet.
Okay, I was going to say, bring your skates and your helmet.
Gotta have the gear.
So legendary investor Warren Buffett's annual auction for lunch just went for a record-breaking price, $19 million. So the bidder is remaining anonymous, but whoever it is, they get to have a private steak lunch with Buffett and up to 7 guests at Smith & Wollensky Steakhouse in New York City. Now, this year's huge sum is more than 4 times the winning bid back in 2019, which was the last auction before a hiatus due to the pandemic. This year's lunch will be the last one auctioned off by the really rich guy, Buffett, and the money will go to the Glide Foundation, a San Francisco-based nonprofit which works on combating poverty, hunger, and homelessness.
Ooh, that's an expensive steak.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So some news from Disney that we got to get to. So there's talks of this. Guy Ritchie took on Aladdin from animation to live action 3 years ago. Now he may tackle another Disney animated feature. Ritchie reportedly is set to direct a live action version of Hercules.
Oh.
Yeah, Hercules for the House of Mouse. No word yet on who will play the legendary strongman, but Ritchie's involvement is really no surprise. His live-action Aladdin grossed more than $1 billion worldwide. I just saw it during the pandemic on home release. Live-action things, they're hit and miss for me.
Yeah,
The
for sure.
cartoons are classic.
Well, I'm excited about this. So the original Iron Chef, it made cooking competitions popular, and now the show is making a comeback. Here's Rick Damigella with more.
Let us prepare for the biggest battle this kitchen has ever seen.
An all-new kitchen stadium, an all-new Iron Chef competition. The heat will be on.
Our secret ingredients: chili peppers, live sturgeon, game birds.
Iron Chef Quest for an Iron Legend supersizes the cooking competition for the streaming era.
We don't stop. You know, there's not a commercial break, which really does change the way that we can structure the shows. There's a lot more personal storytelling involved. We're far more interested in the chefs telling their stories, talking about themselves, where the food comes from, which adds a whole other layer of flavor to the overall competition.
I get to smell, watch, sometimes taste. If somebody shares the energy on the set, people are all happy to be there. It's exciting because, you know, for those 60 minutes, we don't stop.
This is a luxurious kitchen.
It's big.
Alton Brown's new co-host is Chef Kristen Kish.
This is an incredible opportunity, and I have learned an immense amount about what I do professionally through the chefs, what my new role is, and how I can grow personally just by watching these two.
The top challenger from the entire competition will be facing off against all 5 culinary giants in our grand finale.
It's a true 60 minutes, and you have to do 5 dishes, and you can't make a mistake. Because if you make a mistake, that just dominoes for the rest of the 60 minutes. You can't lose 2 minutes on something.
Could I have about 4 of these to go?
It was just so much fun to be in that stadium and sweat and cook and be with these amazing chefs. Like, for me, it's like you feel like you're truly living.
5, we got it. 4, 3,
Come on.
2. Play, now 1.
Ready for seconds in Hollywood, I'm Rick Damigella.
And that's going to do it for This Is Now on this Monday. You guys have a great work week.
See ya.
Bye.